Mike Murray.
This
is
SNL.
SNL
By the numbers.
Numbers.
Baldwin back as Brett. You're so gangsta, I'm so thug. It's Wakim update. There's the opening haiku for you. I am your host, Mike Murray, and this is SNL By The Numbers, the home of SNL stats. We are covering episode 972 of Saturday Night Live, hosted by four-timer Michael Keaton, musical guest, four-timer Billie Eilish. This podcast is a presentation of latenighter.com. Back with two of my faves right here. The Detroiters are in the house. Last time I saw my first guest, I was podcasting live from the delivery room. Sammy Kay is back on the program. Haven't seen you in a while. A lot has changed, but a lot has stayed the same.
A lot has stayed the same for me, and a lot has changed for you. I want to know. We got to get the stats on how many podcasts in the history have been recorded from a delivery room. I feel like you're an elite company, Mike, and that's just the type of stuff you bring over to the show. So I'm super happy to be here. I'm been just listening and loving all of our coverage for this season, this historic season. So I'm happy to get into the numbers tonight.
Same, and thanks for saying that. I mean, to your question, I think the whole reason was I just couldn't stop my Lou Gehrig, Cal Ripken streak. I was like, I don't miss a show, so I'll pop on. John, you take the wheel. Get Sammy on. It'll all work out.
It worked out okay.
Yeah, it did. Yeah. It was a Dua Lipa episode. You can go back and check it out, and and see me after the most stressful experience of my life. So you can go check out the show. My next guest, last time she was here, so was Sammy. We were covering the Dakota Johnson Timberlake episode. Victoria, big friend of the show. Welcome back.
I'm glad to be back, and I'm glad to see you again. I haven't seen you since BB before birth, and
you saw me after my birth, but
Yes, after your birth specifically, I've seen you just a few times. But no, I'm really proud of you and happy for you. You're a dad, and you're doing a great job. So I'm excited for you to be raising our next future leader.
Future leader. I mean, I'm setting the bar at future SNL fan, but we'll see how it goes.
And that's the leader our community needs.
I was doing some screen time of Mikey Day in a Michael Myers mask, and my daughter was sitting on my lap, and I was like, one day this will all be yours. Just the spreadsheets will just be in the will. So she has a lot to look forward to.
That's how she's going to learn math. Just adding up the screen time.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to learn there. So if maybe she'll be in math class and be like, I mean, that's not like a Sudeikis number. Anyway, but Victoria, how have you enjoyed season 50 so far? Haven't talked to you about it.
It's been very exciting. I'm not gonna lie, it's been really nice to have Maya Rudolph and Andy Samberg part of it. I've been just loving. I mean, it's it being the 50th season, and then having two of the most influential cast members of my, upbringing in SNL on is kind of, I don't know, it's like a full circle moment, but so far so fun.
Yeah, it feels good. And Sammy, I feel like you won't disagree.
What if I disagreed? That would make for good podcast.
Yeah, it would good.
Please, if he did, it would be to spite me.
If we were, as always with all my opinions. No, this was an episode of point counterpoint for sure. But no, I've been really enjoying the season. It's really great to have those guys in the building, and of course Dana Carvey as well. It's just and it feels even better for those who watched our draft earlier this season, the alumni draft. I picked Dana Carvey, I think third or fourth overall. I don't remember, but I said, I'm like, you know what? I don't think SNL is committed to Mikey Day as Biden, and I was right. So for that alone, I feel very proud of myself.
Psychic Sammy.
Great call. Psychic Sammy. All right. So we have to go back in time.
Now I just pop this chicken dinner in and send it back in time.
All right, so I think this might be today recording October 23rd. This might be one of the greatest dates in SNL history, and we're gonna find out why. There's a ton of shows on this date. 1976, the great Steve Martin hosted for the first time, played the banjo in the monologue, and the rest was history. 1982, in season 8, Howard Hessman came back second time. Musical guest Men at Work, and he played, both of their banger hits. I saw Men at Work, or at least the front man of Men at Work live recently, playing with Ringo Starr, and I was like, holy shit, Men at Work actually slap. So looking back at that episode,
just one.
He was a man at work along with other men at work. 1993, John Malkovich and Billy Joel, episode 350 in season 19, and Jan Hooks came home to play Hillary Clinton back in 93. 1999, Norm Macdonald hosted One and Only Time just 588 days after his last episode as a cast member. So, quick revolving door over at 30 Rock. That was in season 25. He made his 10th appearance as Burt Reynolds, a.k.a. Turd Ferguson, on Celebrity Jeopardy. That was that Celebrity Jeopardy edition. It's also Rachel Dratch's first episode. Eminem and Dr. Dre were in the building playing Still Dre and Forgot About Dre. And Norm did his final edition of maybe my favorite segment of his outside Update, which was Larry King News and Views. That was in 99. 2004, Jude Law hosted. Who was the musical guest? Ashley Simpson. Nothing notable about her appearance. But we also got the first Bear City with Fred Willard. So go back and watch those. That was like the most nostalgic I felt watching SNL because, I was a young lad watching live. I recently actually, I'm going to go to you, Sammy and Victoria. Think of the craziest moment you've seen in live TV while I do the rest of these dates, because I compiled a list of mine and I put Ashley Simpson's lip sync jig off stage on my list. 2010, Emma Stone hosted for the first time. Taryn and Bobby appeared in the monologue as Michael Cera and Jonah Hill from Superbad. Got the first Lejeune de Paris, classic Emma Stone SNL. And most recently, 2021, Jason Sudeikis finally hosts, has the most screen time for any host I've recorded at 34 minutes. That's, over like 130 episodes that I have in the can right now. He was Bide in the Cold Open, The Devil on Update, and that was the last time we saw What Up With That. Had great live sketches as well. Science Room, Parent Teacher Conference, and Declaration Pitch. So we will go back in time.
Now I just pop this chicken dinner in and send it back in time.
All right, Victoria, do you have a craziest or wackiest live TV moment that you've personally witnessed?
So I've seen two, and they're two of the most talked about, I guess. And those are truly the only two things I've seen live and not after on a news segment or on social media. And that was the Justin Timberlake, Janet Jackson Super Bowl situation.
Yeah, that was on my list.
Yep.
Patriots,
and then
Panthers, Super Bowl 38.
Yep. And then the Kanye West interrupting Taylor Swift. I remember where I was both places. I was doing math homework at my parents' pizza shop, and the TV was on, and looked up and stopped doing that math homework.
So you were doing math homework for many years. So there's a lot of time passed between those two events.
Yeah. Well, no, just for don't listen. Mike knows I'm not 100%. That's what anyway. Matt.
John in the chat says the Moonlight La La Land snafu at the Oscars with Kimmel. Speaking of Emma Stone, as he mentions. Sammy, what about you?
So yeah, he just took mine. I was gonna say, as a big movie and Oscar head, the two that come to mind were the La La Land and Moonlight situation. I was actually in college, like watching with the guys I was living with at the time, and just freaking out. That was crazy. And then the slap, I watched that live as well, just a couple of years ago. Just the Oscars, they didn't think they would top the La La Land Moonlight moment, and then a couple of years later,
they sure did.
They sure did. So those are the ones that come to mind.
Yeah, a lot of mine on my list were like tragic events in American history that I was watching live. I don't have to mention those, but yeah, a lot of those were like those award shows, the Kanye, Taylor, and those two Oscars ones. So all right,
I was gonna say I also did watch.
Which ones? Oh, okay, all right.
Lying.
All right. This is a listening medium, but yeah.
And that's why I didn't say it. It's for
Oh, I just got that.
All right. So moving along, we're talking about Michael Keaton and Billie Eilish because there was some live TV this week. It was SNL, a show that you guys have probably heard of. So we're gonna look at, before we dive into the screen time, just talk about Michael Keaton as a host, and see what you guys liked about his performance. But let's get into his measurables here, where this is by the numbers after all. So he had a total of 15 minutes 40 seconds of screen time. That's not including the two Billy intros. But to compare, that's 14th percentile impact of a host. So that means 86% of SNL hosts have had a bigger impact on their episode. So some comparables: a lot of one-time hosts had like a similar impact on their show. Rami Malek, Jonathan Majors, Elon Musk, Jacob Elordi, Don Cheadle, and Anya Taylor-Joy had like a similar stat line and just like impact of like supporting or lead roles and screen time, and like where they appeared in the show. So his breakdown was, for his 15 minutes and 40 seconds, 24.7% came in the Shop TV Halloween Cookies. That was his biggest appearance at almost 4 minutes. 23% in his monologue. No surprise there. It was a short monologue. He was on screen the whole time. He had 4% was in the Please Don't Destroy skydiving. He had about 10% in the Dismukes Forbidden Romance sketch. 13% was in the Uber game show. 7% as Bo, the choreographer for the Halloween movie. And almost 18% was at the 10-1 tableside guac with Heidi Gardner. So, Victoria, what did you like that you saw from Michael Keaton, and would you have utilized him differently given the stats here?
I would have loved to see more of him. He's overall just a tremendous actor, and he's one of my favorites. And side note, he ages like fine wine. He's beautiful to see on the screen. But no, I truly do mean it. He's very versatile in his acting, to go from, I think Bo, the choreographer, to that PDD pre-tape, two different characters, and he played them incredibly well. But he did that throughout the whole night. I really loved him.
Yeah, I agree. I thought the choreographer was an underrated appearance for him, because he really brought it to that role. And as you see on the screen, as I read, 7% of his night, that's 1 minute and 6 seconds that he played that role. And I thought he stole the whole scene. So Sammy, what about you? Do you think he was underutilized? Did you like the parts that we did see they put Keaton in, or what did you think?
Yeah, I love Michael Keaton. Like, when this run of show was announced, I was super excited to see him come back and host, especially because, since we saw him last, he's had such a career sort of renaissance this last decade. And he's brought back Batman. He's brought back Beetlejuice recently. But also you got to recognize this is like the end of a run, and they don't usually do 4 shows back to back like this. So, I think maybe that has some sort of impact on, them utilizing Michael Keaton, or being able to, have the material for him. Like, once you get to this episode, I found that in the roles and time he was given, he's such a professional, and he's just a good actor. He's able to elevate sort of like the little, moments, in these sketches. I really liked him in the Shop TV sketch. Like, I know we've seen that a couple times, but just that sort of charismatic role, and he's on screen for that entire time. I found that to be a good appearance. So I obviously would have liked to see more, but I found that, unlike those other hosts that you mentioned, I wouldn't put him in the category, as far as quality of episode or quality of performance, as those other hosts you listed off.
I would agree. I think the takeaway is probably just the diversity of roles. I mean, you look at these appearances here, I don't think he really overlapped in them. Think about his kind of supporting character next to Ego in the Uber game show was, much different than the choreographer, which is much different than the table side. So that's like a lot of live characters that he brought that felt lived in, and I think are brought to life by a seasoned pro like Michael Keaton. So yeah, I was happy from what I saw from him, but just definitely a low screen time for a host in general, and especially for one that's hosted 3 times prior. So let's look at everybody from this week and do the full screen time. Michael Keaton is going to be at the top, of course. So if you add in his intros for Billie Eilish, he totaled at a 15-minute, 49 seconds. Sarah Sherman leading the cast for her second time in her career, and it was the career best screen time for Sarah Sherman. So that's 9 minutes, 32 seconds. So still chasing that 10-minute white whale of an episode, but this is her best one. Her previous career best was last year's Bargatze. That was 8 minutes 23. And the time she led the cast before was in last season's Brolin episode. So the Brolin show and this show were the 2 times that Sarah led the cast. Mikey Day in second place in the cast, and his 4 appearances, 8 minutes 33. A lot of that being that Shop TV sketch. Billie Eilish, 8 minutes 2 seconds. Heidi Gardner, 7 minutes 38. Ego Wodum, 7:24. Jost really dominated update. We saw way more of Jost and Shay this week with the 2 guest spots, and a big intro from Jost. He was 6 minutes 13. Of course, you couldn't have Billie Eilish without Phineas. He had 5 minutes 53 seconds. Andrew Dismuke still putting up the numbers, 5 minutes 30. That's his highest of the year so far. Maya Rudolph, 2 appearances, one in a cold open and also in Tik Tok, 4 minutes 43. Bowen Yang, who's been killing it so far, is now in the middle of the pack at 4 minutes 18. Emil Wakim has his breakout night, 3 minutes 58. Alec Baldwin, 3 minutes 15 as Brett Baer in that opening. Ashley Padilla, 2 minutes 43. Chloe Feynman right behind, 2 minutes 42. Michael Che, 2:41, so a second between each of them. Kenan Thompson, 2 minutes 28. John Higgins back with PDD. He was a minute 58. James Austin Johnson had a monster week last week. This time, only a minute 50. Martin Herlihy, a minute 49. Andy Samberg, as one of the 2 40-something Beetlejuices, was a minute 37 in the monologue. Ben Marshall, a minute 12. Devin Walker, a minute 1. Marcelo, 58 seconds. Dana Carvey, 52 seconds. We have the ID of the Minion cameraman, Paul Cangelosi, who has played Roy the cameraman in the Shop TV sketch. He had 13 seconds of his own. Michael Longfellow, no live appearances, but he was the before and after in TikTok of the Black Wife effect. He had 12 seconds there. And Jane Wickline, 5 seconds. Sammy, who do you want to talk about from this show?
Well, obviously, want to give a shout out to Sarah Sherman here. I thought her update piece was great. Great to see her back on the desk. I'm very surprised, I guess, to see that she led the cast here. But I guess when you really break it down like that, makes a lot of sense. Obviously, updates going to give you a lot of time. She made that small appearance in the monologue. So all that is interesting. And then I guess another thing I want to highlight is just the way that they're using Kenan. I mean, with 4 appearances and still being, that down the list, I don't think this is the first time we've kind of seen this in recent episodes or maybe last season where, you're getting a lot of Kenan as far as number of appearances go, but the actual screen time, he's not necessarily carrying these sketches as much. So that definitely sticks out to me.
Yeah, with Kenan, I pulled a stat on him. This is the first time since we've been doing stats, and my stats right now go back to season 43, that we've gone through 4 episodes and Kenan hasn't had a 5-minute night yet. So I looked at most of them, and he typically had a 10-minute night by this point, but at least a 5-minute night through the first 4. And Kenan so far has not done that. And that's an interesting storyline to follow. So I'll look at his numbers so far. So Kenan Thompson has had 2:27 with Gene Smart, 3 minutes with Bargatze, 4 minutes 8 with Ariana, and 2:28 this week. Victoria, what about you? Who do you want to talk about from this week?
Well, I just want to say welcome back, PDD. Really missed you. They came back and they came back swinging. I really love that pre-tape that they did. But I'm looking at these numbers, and I'm going to give a general note about all the cast numbers. I think this season is incredibly different than previous ones because I feel like I saw them on screen more, but that just means their impact on screen is a lot bigger than normal, because like looking at, like I thought Ego would have been leading for some reason. I don't know why I thought that, but yeah, that Bowen Yang, Chloe Feynman, and Michael Che all kind of surprised me in terms of numbers, but yeah, and they're doing a great job. If I'm thinking there's more of them than there is.
Yeah, and I second that. Welcome back, PDD. I thought they hit a home run with this one. You know, we've seen only a few of them out of the office, and I thought this was great. And they got to play very individual roles this time. Speaking of Sarah's night, I'll give you the breakdown. 8 seconds as herself in the Keaton monologue. 4 minutes and 5 seconds, we saw an update. Really long desk piece from Sarah. So if you liked it or not, that's a very elongated appearance and update for a guest. 3 minutes 32 seconds as one of the passengers of the Uber game show, and then on the couch with Chloe Feynman, 1:47 there. So yeah, anybody else, Sammy, before we move on?
Yeah, I mean, after I think last week, JJ had a great week. Seeing him a lot lower down here is, a bit disappointing, especially because even though we have him in the cold open as Trump, we're not seeing a lot of that. So I'm sure getting those prosthetics and makeup off him can be a challenge as far as getting him into more live sketches. But, definitely would have loved to see some non-Trump JJ pieces from him this week.
Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't heard mentioned yet on any of our coverage or online, is that last week he was in the Ariana Grande, the Family Feud opening, had a big part with, Maya's Kamala, and then was like all over the night. So I kind of assumed that, we were going to get 5 or 6 minutes of him maybe on a great night when he's in the cold open, and then we don't see as much of him, but they definitely got him out of the hair and makeup quickly, because that night he was all over the show. So some other stats. This is Mikey Day's highest screen time since last season's Adam Driver show. And for the only second time in his career, we have back-to-back weeks with less than a minute of Marcelo screen time. So this hasn't happened since the Meg Thee Stallion, Jack Harlow episodes, which were his third and fourth of his career. So Marcelo's had a great start of this season. And of course, last year was like rising up the power rankings and was the standout of his rookie class. And this is the 13th time with less than a minute of Longfellow. So we had the good week with Bargatze, at least a great sketch from him. And for Ego Odom, best episode for her since Sydney Sweeney last year. So great night for Ego. And before we wrap up, the TikTok sketch came back. We had 16 cast members / cameos in that. Haven't seen a big ensemble piece like that since the Bad Couples sketch with Iowa Debris. Sam, you remember that sketch? The outside interviewing the bad couples.
Yep, definitely. I enjoyed that one for sure.
Yeah, and Victoria, how do you feel about the sketch? Are you a small ensemble or a big ensemble in general?
It depends on the ensemble. So I think if they're powerful players, maybe smaller. But if they're a bit more reserved, I'll take a big ensemble, mix of everybody. I from like a performance perspective, smaller is better.
Yeah, a little bit more room to breathe, but in this case, they're very individual pieces, and the Bad Couples one as well, because they got to each come out and do their thing. We've seen those with those city council parade sketches where people get to have their one kind of zany character and dip out of the sketch. But Sammy, would you like to see more of that, those type of TikTok pre-tapes? Because, this is now the 3rd edition.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I've really enjoyed all 3 of these. I did hear somebody on one of our shows comment about how, they'd like to see them do a little bit more with, some of the sort of recreations of the TikToks. I think, I kind of totally agree with that point. Like, it's funny to see bring the boom guys, but can you do more than just a reference? But overall, I do like the TikTok format. I did find it interesting though that, for having 16, different people in that sketch, no Michael Keaton in that one, right? As far as I remember. You're on mute.
No Keaton, no Dismukes, no Jostin Shea, but no surprise. there. But yeah, so that we mentioned, the low screen time, so that's definitely a factor. There's decently long pre-tape. Victoria?
I will say that pre-tape, like that TikTok instance, is the first that I thought was funny, like really funny and smart, and tapped into what's going on, in our current day and age. That wasn't like ridiculous or exaggerated. It truly was an accurate representation of what most of us are seeing on our For You pages. And I mean, someone made that comment under one of the videos of, do we all have the same FYP? And it's like, yeah, girl, we do. Maybe.
Yeah, and I do myself and other panelists on the SNN. I love when we get to have those type of like anecdotes about SNL casuals or people outside our circle mention things, because it's kind of a ear to the ground about how SNL like penetrates the bubble. And I had a friend of mine like mention the TikTok sketch, and he said like every aspect of it was something that he knew. So he got like every reference, where for me, I don't think I got maybe a single reference other than like Call Her Daddy and like Kamala and Trump, things like that are like in politics. So it is definitely a good way, you have to admit that when they do stuff like that, that's like quick hits of pop culture. Sometimes it might be better than like leaning in to something that's from a while ago that the diehards don't want to see, and the casuals are like, oh, I've already heard about this a million times. So yeah, let's there's one more person of the night that we have to talk about, and I'm very excited. So we did, after the Bargatze show, Jane Wickline made her Weekend Update debut, and I thought this would be a great chance to look at all the Weekend Update debuts since Kenan. So going back like 21 years, all the way back to 2003. And I was very excited. I'm a huge sucker for newbies making their debut, because you never know how long they're going to be on the show. They could be on the show for 15 years or one year, and I want to get to know them. So Emil Wakim did in his 4th episode. So I'll give you some context, and I'd love to hear what Sammy and Victoria, how they felt about that appearance. So Emil is now alongside Heidi Gardner, for making in their 4th episode, making the update debut. And now he's the 20th cast member in the past 21 seasons to do it in his or her first 10 episodes. So that's from, if you're looking along, I can't read them all out, but Taron Killam, Chris Redd, they were at like 10 episodes, Rob Riggle, Bobby Moynihan at 8, all the way down to like the 1. So I'll remind the listeners who made an update debut in their debut. And that's Fred Armisen, Finesse Mitchell, Kenan, Bill Hader, Andy Samberg. They actually did it together. Jay Farrow, Cecily Strong, Kyle Mooney, Pete Davidson, Michael Longfellow, and of course, Leslie Jones before she even joined the cast. So Victoria, I'll go to you first. How pumped were you? What did you think of the comedy and just the debut itself of Emil?
So I actually have loved Emil as a comedian pre-SNL. I met him last year in Chicago, and he was incredibly kind. I even have a tweet that somehow resurfaced. I think someone was looking up Emil and liked my tweet where I said, if Emil Wakim is in your city, run, go to and like get a ticket. His set was incredible. And I was very pleasantly surprised, I should say, when I saw him join the cast. I didn't think he would shoot for something like SNL, but I'm really glad that he did. And the topic was kind of close to home. So I'm also a Middle Eastern Christian, and, similar views. I wouldn't say completely the same, but it was really, for me personally, it was great to have that representation on TV. And I've never seen someone with my brother's name on SNL. I haven't seen many other people outside of my brother have that name. So it was really special for me. And just the content itself was really funny. When that one joke bombed, no pun intended, he was like, Colin Jost wrote that for me. And that was a great save. And that just kind of speaks to his wittiness and how funny he is. So Emil Wakim, if you're watching, and I know that you are, I'm going to say to him, this is in Arabic, folks, Mabruk. And, I'm wishing you a really great career in SNL, and thanks for the representation. Kind of spot on.
Yeah, love to hear your take, Victoria, especially if it's close to home. And So Emil, same spelling, same pronunciation?
With an A. And yeah, Emil, sometimes he goes by Emilio, but yeah, his name is Emil. And like, again, it's not a name I hear every day. I have never met anyone else named Emil. And then when I saw that he was a comedian, I obviously was intrigued. And yeah, it's really great to have that representation.
So before I let you go and go to Sammy on this, I will have to ask you, so we as the SNL community got to, get a glimpse of his comedic stylings and his stand-up, doing, some material, alongside Colin Jost. But if you had to describe what his, like a full 20-minute set or 40 minutes or a full hour, if he does that much material, like, what kind of style is his comedy as a stand-up?
What you saw is that, but like incredibly elevated, where it's sarcastic, it's poignant, it's pointy, it's he's just honest about real life cultural issues, and I think he's not afraid to push the envelope on certain things, especially as a Middle Eastern person talking about our own cultural situations or things that we go through. He calls some things out, and he's not afraid to call other people out, and he's very, I guess, topical too. And he's just, I would say, overall smart. It's smart comedy.
So but a lot of personal stuff, because it seemed like we got to know him quickly, more than some other appearances that we've seen in Update, even if they're doing their own material. It's not like written just for that night. But yeah, I totally agree when it comes to people that have different backgrounds than me. It's so nice to be able to laugh with them and understand it better. The show I went to last year was the Rami Youssef show, and he did so much material about being Muslim and talking about like really serious things, but did it with like a really calm like smile, and just like won the crowd over so much. And at the end of the night, like, I feel like the whole audience at home and there felt like they knew him. And I thought Emil had this like definitely different than Rami's delivery, but like had this like amazing confidence, and that was talked about on the roundtable as well. So Sammy, what did you think about this historic debut for an SNL rookie?
Yeah, that was my big takeaway as well. Just being able to, in your first couple episodes on SNL, like take a national stage and like be so confident behind the desk. I found his delivery to be so strong, and tackling a topic that can be hard, today to really talk about it. But he didn't like really hold anything back, and it definitely made me very excited to see more from him. I mean, we've been able to get some appearances from him in small sketches. I mean, even in this episode, his small role in the PDD sketch, I found to be a real highlight of that as well. And I know over the last couple of years, he has more of a stand-up background, and sometimes stand-ups making their way onto SNL and being able to play in sketches can be a challenge for some people. But something about the delivery and his presence really stood out to me. So I'm hoping we'll see more of that at the desk, and translate into some other sketches as well.
Totally agree on the PDD. Didn't have much time, but was like so funny in those couple quick lines that he had. So we did have Ashley Padilla at the desk that was cut. So hopefully we see her soon. So I have her at the top of the list here as, TBD, because we don't know in her rookie year when we'll see her. So I do hope we do, because there are people on this list that have, a no first update date, which is Chloe Trost, Luke Knoll, John Milheiser, Michael Bryan, Noel Wells, Tim Robinson, Jenny Slate, and Casey Wilson. So we look back on all their careers, for better, for worse. We wish they were still, they stayed longer. But if you have an update piece, it sometimes is like just a great way to introduce yourself. So I'm glad we saw that with Jane and Emil so far. So there was a stat that I hadn't explored. So I had some help from my friend Eric looking at this, because there was, only 4 episodes, and on By the Numbers, we love to have big sample sizes and really try to like cut out the variables and just talk about, something that we can all point at and try to make, some assumptions about or theories about, which is Gene Smart, Michael Keaton, 6th and 7th oldest hosts in the history of the show, hosting already out of 4 episodes, both low screen times. And so I know you might say like, well, Gene Smart was not feeling well and they had a long cold open, but that's why we want to do a big sample size. So you're seeing here is, drum roll please, a parabola on By the Numbers. Let's see this type of bell curve of youngest hosts in their screen time variations to oldest hosts in their variations. So the outliers here would probably be alumni, because if you're an alum of the show, I don't think it matters what your age, whether it's Marty Short or Pete Davidson. I'd expect to see you more than a first-time host or anybody. So the conclusion that Eric and I came to was that there is sort of a sweet spot of that 35 to 44 years old, averaging like in the high 21 minutes. And, because if I did include Sudeikis and like the, that in between 40 and 50, which he'd be, setting all the data askew. So, but there is a conclusion that the youngest hosts and the oldest hosts get less screen time. So, Sammy, what do you think about this data set here?
This is super interesting. I'm glad you guys put this together. I mean, it makes a lot of sense, right? Because, I'm not saying you're, when you're in your 40s, you're in the prime of your life, but I think the show might just feel like that. If you're really young, you can't, you're not going to build the show around them necessarily. And if you're on the older side, then you're a first-time host. I think that to me is more so when I was looking at Gene Smart, for example. Like Gene Smart as a first-time host, obviously we know that she, was sick that week. So I guess we'll never know what that show would have looked like and how her screen time would have looked like if that wasn't the case. But it's just, SNL is a big commitment. It's a lot to ask of somebody, of an older age to kind of do that. I think what is interesting here is the 55 to 64, range here with the 21-minute, 45-second screen time. Do you know off the top of your head any of the 6 hosts in that age range? Just curious about that.
Yeah, for sure. So 55, I'll going from that age. Well, I guess I'll just say the ones that aren't alumni but had high screen time. So that would be Steve Carell, Woody Harrelson, Josh Brolin, RuPaul had a big night. So we have 2 Woody Harrelsons in here, Emma Thompson. So those are at the higher end. Sorry, Emma Thompson would be below 20 minutes, but the other ones were in the 20s. So, and then just to look at the lower, so of, since we've been doing SNL stat coverage, like these are the youngest hosts and they have low screen time, which is Jenna Ortega, not low, but under 20 minutes, literally 1 second below. Halsey, 14 minutes, 17 seconds. Jack Harlow, 17 minutes, 18 seconds. The first Chalamet outing, 15 minutes. Anya Taylor-Joy, I mentioned earlier, 16 minutes, 49. And for context, this is not including double duty performances for musical guest spots or the intros. And we also eliminated the COVID episodes, the 3 at-homes in the Paul Rudd season 47. So Victoria, as a performer yourself, and you're not in that range yet of the sweet spot, does this give you hope that you haven't even hit your prime yet as a performer? Because 35 to 44, I mean, that's something to look forward to, right?
I was going to say, I'm just getting started. Listen, I don't know why the youngest and oldest have the least amount of screen time. There are many theories. I don't want to necessarily, dock the older folks and say it's energy or it's, too big for them to commit to or whatever it is. My guess, one of the theories I have is perhaps if you're younger and you're semi-newish to the industry or whatever you're in and stardom, SNL is like a really big deal and you're just happy to be there and you don't want to impede or you're maybe not as experienced, so you're kind of giving the power to the cast. And then on the other hand of that, maybe that 65 plus group is, wanting to give more of a platform for these younger folks to shine. I can see them being kind to that. So who knows? But I think it's interesting. I think I'm just getting started. And SNL, if you want to hire me, go for it.
Yeah, you heard it here. So let's just look at the average in SNL history of what a host ages, which is 38.87. So if you look at every single host, the age they were when they hosted the first time, the last time, the 15th time, it's 38.87 is the average, which is, coincidentally, like basically George Carlin's age in the premiere. He was 38.4, where we see this week coming up, John Melany at 42. He's in that sweet spot. I'm sure we have some Melany data in here already. We're going to get a 6th episode, which I'm sure he'll be well over 20 minutes. And, for the episodes that I have done screen time for, looking at the average host, it would be 19 minutes, 44 seconds. So that's why if you're looking at this chart right now, seeing the parabola, we're saying the sweet spot or the highest average, not including the alumni, would be 35 to 44. You're over 21 minutes. And then also, as Sammy mentioned, that 55 to 64 is also right between those two averages. So something very interesting to look at, and only 4 episodes so far, and the thesis made sense. So you guys ready for 5 questions?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Can't wait to do this with you guys. So we have some Detroit energy for the 5 questions. All right.
Think of Sammy and me as Tim Robinson and Sam Richardson.
Yep.
I already did. Okay.
Hey, great party. I'm sorry I'm late. I forgot where you lived.
Oh my God!
That's okay, Harry.
I feel dizzy.
That was massive head wound, Harry, for the youngsters out there. Okay, question 1. Alec Baldwin returned to SNL this week. He's hosted 17 times. That's the record. Cameoed almost 60. What's your favorite Alec Baldwin moment in SNL history? Sammy, over to you.
Oh boy. I have a few, if that's okay. Or do I have to say just one?
You can say a few.
All right, I'll say a few. Okay, I got to go back to my SNL origin story. I feel like the sketch definitely hasn't aged well, but the first SNL anything I ever had was the Best of Adam Sandler DVD. So I watched a lot of Canteen Boy. I've seen Canteen Boy many, many times. Definitely something you would never do today, but
so good.
That sketch is one of the reasons why I'm on this podcast today. Platinum Lounge. I mean, obviously anything to do with the 5 Timers Club and the lore, but the Platinum Lounge, seeing Steve and Alec Baldwin like try to poison each other and everything, like that's something I wish they would bring back, and maybe SNL 50 they'll do it. And then the last one is a bit more of a deep cut. It's a Nassim Pedrad sketch. It's called Date with a Child Psychologist. I don't want to spoil too much about that sketch, but that one I really enjoy. So definitely check that out if you haven't seen it in a while.
Yeah, check that one out for sure. I saw Canteen Boy in the chat as well from Chris, and John said Brenda the waitress. So Victoria, hopefully we didn't steal all the good ones, because we have, like hundreds of appearances from Alec on the show.
I know mine's gonna be a typical common one. It's not a hot take. It's gonna be sweaty balls and delicious dish. Like it's
Yep, seeing that in the chat as well. I mean, how can we be remiss if no one mentioned that? It's again, for the SNL casuals, people will quote that who may have not seen SNL since they quote that sketch. So it's great.
And I don't know that many people have seen this movie, but Glenn Ross, but he did a Glenn Christmas sketch over a decade ago, and I really enjoyed that too.
ABC, always be closing.
Oh, Sweater weather.
Sweater weather.
Sweater weather.
Oh, God, I would.
Finally, sweater weather. Sweater weather.
It's about time.
It's about time.
Sweater weather.
Sweater weather.
Oh,
Finally,
thank
sweater weather.
God. Sweater weather.
Sweater weather.
Question 2. We recently saw 2 rare cast duos, Sarah and Jadge as Noel and Liam Gallagher of Oasis. And then in the cut for time this week was Marcello and Michael Longfellow on Update. So what unusual cast pairing would you like to see next, Victoria?
Oh man. I would say I like when a newbie and a veteran have, or I should say rookie and a veteran come together. I would like to see Ash Padilla and Mikey Day do something together.
Yeah, why not? I mean,
just like just to feel it out. Like, how often would you think about that? Or maybe like an Ash Padilla and like Kenan Thompson, just different energies, different vibes, and seeing how they mesh.
yeah, I thought we saw some good repartee between her and Heidi in that 10-1. And we did a segment on By the Numbers last week about like the class of 47, which is the Aristotle, Sarah, and Jadge. And then we saw Sarah and James together. And I was like, I love when we see that. And then we almost got Marcello and Michael Longfellow as classmates there. So Sammy, what about you? 2 cast members right now that you wouldn't expect, but you'd love to see.
Yeah, I mean, wouldn't expect. I mean, I feel like for a while we've all been talking about like something. We need more Dismukes and Sarah together. They both, in their own ways, can be so weird that I don't even need something weird from them. But I feel like the show in general, we could use some more just like kind of wacky couple characters. Like I'm thinking like early 2000s, like the Rachel Dratch, Jimmy Fallon, Boston Teens pairing. Like I'm envisioning like some sort of like duo between the two of them. And then, we were just talking about the TikTok sketch, but the Black Wife effect. Give me more Ego and Longfellow in a real sketch and not just a screenshot in a TikTok sketch.
Co-sign completely, Sammy. I'm seeing from Scott in the chat, Jane and Keenan, another Dismukes and Padilla from John. So totally agree. I just love that's the easiest way to do a sketch that we may have seen the concept a lot, but make it feel new and energetic. Is just be like, oh, it's Ego and Longfellow. Like I haven't seen this before. Like I think that is such a good thing for the show. We talked about last year when there was we talked to Punky Johnson and she was saying that Lauren like addressed the cast and said, work with people you don't work with that often. And I know we're early in the year. We have 3 newbies, but I think that's a great territory to try to get into more, is just work with people you don't work with that often.
Any questions?
Question 3. This week's show is a little light on the Halloween themes compared to years past. Do you think the show should lean in on the holiday episodes more, or was this a sufficient enough acknowledgement? Victoria, what do you think?
I wish they would have done just a little bit more. I don't think they need to go full Halloween, but just give me a little bit. I need a costume party of some sort, or like a spooky or like a horror. I think it was 4 years ago. It's like 2020, I believe, or 2019. They did that skit. I'm going to butcher it, where they did the DNC like candidate pre-tape. Do you know what I'm talking about? And at the end, it's like the slip under the door said Beto O'Rourke.
Oh yes,
Does anyone know?
The pre-tape? Yeah, the horror, which was
Yes.
the best moment I remember was Punky Johnson Googling Joe Biden's age and subtracting his birth year from the current year to figure out how old Joe Biden is, because he was at that time. We're like, he's all we got. So
Yes.
which is even funnier in hindsight now that he's no longer the
very
nominee.
relevant.
That's a great call. Sammy, what do you think? And by the way, this doesn't have to go for holidays either. Like I was doing the, this day in SNL history, and there was so much like baseball because of the World Series typically being like last week of October. So just thematically in general, should they lean into that? Because you look back and go, kind of like a Christmas song. Like you hear it every year, maybe a holiday sketch, you rewatch it every year. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm like 100% for that. I mean, it doesn't even need to necessarily be like the Halloween, episode like in October. And I know it's kind of hard because that's when SNL comes back. So you can't just do like a whole month of Halloween themed sketches. But like, if a week before the Halloween episode, like I'd take a Halloween sketch, like it's the season. You get some Christmas sketches, in early December sometimes. But yeah, I mean, I think it just goes back to SNL being a time capsule. So I think, being able to go back and say like, this is, a sketch from Halloween or Christmas. I mean, on our Superfan takeovers, we did like a Halloween best of and a Christmas one. And, there's not like there wasn't like a ton of sketches, like, or at least really good ones. So I think there's opportunity to do more with some of those themes.
I'm someone who on this podcast a lot has said, I love slice of life. I love evergreen. Like those are my favorite sketches that are just situational, just people in a living room. Like I loved the Josh Brolin like cat one from last year and things like that. Like I just really get into those because they're like more reliant on the writing and performances than necessarily the concept, and you can get as wacky as you want. But I feel like with those ones, they're just super relatable. Like everyone knows what baseball is or the Super Bowl is. Everyone knows what Halloween or Christmas or Thanksgiving is. So I think that's easy. And now rapid fire, complete lightning round. Sammy, favorite Halloween sketch?
Oh, I got to go with one of the Vincent Price Halloween sketches with Bill Hader. That's just, my cast and seeing them all at their prime, especially the John Hamm one. It's a classic.
But why now? Vincent Price. Yeah, I love that one. Victoria, what about you? Favorite Halloween SNL sketch?
I have one that's like Halloween, and one that's a horror one, if I can say both of those.
You can say both.
Okay, A Girl's Halloween from like 8 years ago.
So
It was Amy
good.
Bryant, Cecily, Vanessa, very, like you said, very relatable. And then I really loved Chad with John Mulaney.
Yeah, see, John Mulaney plays like a Scream-esque killer to Pete Davidson's Chad.
Okay.
That's a great one. Yeah, good answers.
Devin? What are you doing here?
It was announced earlier this month that John Mulaney will host a live variety talk show on Netflix in early 2025. Do you think this could threaten the space that SNL has dominated for so long? Victoria, what do you think?
In a word, no.
In a word? Okay, Sammy, do you have more than a word?
Yeah, I have a few words. I just think competition is a good thing, So, and if you guys watched, Everybody's in LA with John Mulaney, like I think it's a variety talk show, but it's more of a talk show with some sketches, like like Jimmy Fallon and all the late night shows. So, I think it's great, and honestly, like I think SNL could use like a like not Mad TV, but something out there that they're trying to get the best talent. They're trying to make the show, the best it could be. Like I think this is just the first step for Netflix. I could totally see them making their own SNL. So it'll be interesting to see if that does happen. How that will impact SNL. Hopefully, it'll just make them work even harder.
Yeah, competition always a good thing. There is one thing though, Victoria, maybe you can comment on this, is that Netflix would not be held to the same standards and practices of network television, which could give a Netflix show an edge. And as an absolute to the end SNL loyalist, that I don't want anyone to threaten my family, so to speak. But of course, yeah, I would. People getting into sketch comedy or getting into stand-up comedy overall is a good thing. I want people to like comedy, know who stand-ups are. Victoria mentioning she knew who Emil was, and then she's excited to see him. Like things like that, I think are healthy though. But Victoria, do you have a comment more than a word?
Yes. No, I was going to say, I mean, he's competing with 50 years of SNL and 50 years of fans from across generations and backgrounds and whatnot. And SNL just has a unique live sketch based format with an ensemble cast that has been culturally iconic for decades. And I mean, Melany is sharp and witty, and he's been part of the SNL family. So he'll likely bring something fresh and distinctive. But I mean, I would say maybe the standard won't be as high as network television, but maybe there's a little bit more freedom in terms of format and pacing. So temporarily, sure, it might draw away some some of SNL's audience temporarily, but I think long term they can coexist.
Well said. You guys remember those ads about piracy? That's like, you wouldn't steal this. You wouldn't do like, I just think like, you wouldn't make your own SNL. Like, friend of the show, John Mulaney.
Yep. And everybody would totally follow the rules and listen to that.
Yeah. And I remember that, not that I've ever pirated anything, of course not, but
no.
Nor would you, Sammy or Victoria. But I remember hearing a study or reading an article that was like, the people that pirate are also like the biggest supporters of the arts because they're the ones who want to watch movies. The people who don't care about movies or music aren't buying it either. So the people that want to share it and promote artists and art are the ones who are like desperate to get their hands on it. So like I said, hopefully if this does get into an SNL space, that it's something that's not only healthy competition, but just kind of celebrates the medium. We don't want sketch comedy to become something that's like, oh, that's an SNL thing. It should be a thing that people do often. We saw Inside Amy Schumer, Key and Peele, Chappelle's Show, tons of YouTube sketch, TikTok now. So, all right.
Did you guys, real quick, did you guys watch Melany's Netflix show earlier this year? The Everybody's in LA?
Not all of it, but a good chunk of it is really good.
Yeah, I loved it. I was like, It was like my whole personality for like a week. I was like, you got to be watching this. What's everyone doing?
That does not surprise me about you, Sammy.
All right, everyone, the time has come. We've got an order here for one lobster.
All right. Speaking of Melany, he's hosting the next episode in 2 Saturdays from now. So question 5, we are most likely on the cusp of our 6th Melany New York musical. What are your predictions? What musical should they parody? And most importantly, I want your prediction of what New York item will be the inspiration this time. So as a recap for the listeners and for the panelists, we had Diner Lobster, Bodega Bathroom, Airport Sushi, I Heart New York Underwear, and Subway Churro. Victoria, what New York item should they, be the catapult of this sketch?
I mean, Melany takes the most mundane and or / downright weird NYC experiences or New York experiences and like turning them into Broadway style productions. So I could see him like doing like a Phantom of the Opera like type musical with like haunting one of those old like New York City payphones that somehow still exist. But no, I think he'd do another parody, like something like a Les Mis, but maybe Phantom of the Opera and something weird like that. Or like I could see him parodying something like 24-hour Duane Reade Pharmacy or a full-blown musical number about people aimlessly wandering aisles at 3 a.m. trying to find like off-brand cold medicine. So
love it. Love any mention of Duane Reade. Ellis says would love a Studio 8H tribute this week. So that would be cool. I mean, talk about New York institutions. It's like the Ed Sullivan Theater and 30 Rockefeller and the skating rink and Duane Reade and Street Meat and things like that. So Sammy, what about you? Expectations, hopes, predictions for Melany New York musical number 6.
Yeah, I'm predicting we don't get a Chris Redd cameo because I know he used to, him and Pete used to not anchor these sketches, but they were the friends. We might get a Pete cameo.
Well, yeah, we had, and then the last time we had Chris and Dismukes playing the Pete role.
Right. So maybe no Pete, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do there. But I mean, I'm just excited.
Calling
If I had to
Devin
pick-
Walker to set. Dismukes and Devin Walker to set.
I
for-
get,
Yeah,
I
why
could
not?
see it. I could see it. But as far as like a location or an item or a venue, I don't know why this came to mind, but the last time I was in New York, when I was in Times Square, I was walking by the AMC in Times Square, and I don't know anything about the AMC in Times Square, but I'm curious what the AMC in Times Square is looking like and what kind of people are going to see a movie there. I can't imagine it's the best theater when there's so many other places to go see a movie in New York. So no shade at AMC, but I'm predicting some sort of thing with a Times Square movie theater sort of setting. And then you can do movie musicals too. I don't know.
Yeah, there's just so many things you could do. I mean, Central Park Zoo, Grant's Tomb. There's like a lot of things that, whether you're a regular visitor or a tourist, that you could see. Tom's Restaurant from Seinfeld. Just anything that is just like, again, an evergreen New York venue or thing. So I remember buying. I bought those cheap umbrellas for $5 that like wilt in 5 minutes. So there's so many of those, but that concludes 5 questions. So looking ahead to the Melany Chapel Roan episode, we need to look at what our current power rankings are, because we've been seeing a lot of movement, early in the year. So we have a lot of ups and downs. So here we go. Victoria, it's been a while since you've seen one of these. And beautiful redesign by John Schneider, by the way. Whoa,
That's
she
so
says.
pretty.
That looks nice.
I agree. So if you're watching with us, you see the ups and down arrow that I used to do like way back in the day in Apple Numbers, doing the up and down arrows, but they look way sexier and sleeker now. So here are the updated power rankings after 4 weeks of SNL. Number 1, still Bowen Yang, who had a big dip from his first 3, but his numbers are so big that he's going to stay number 1. He's at a 98.5. Number 2, Colin Jost, who's putting up huge screen time. He's at an 80.6. Number 3, Mikey Day, had a gigantic week and a big leap up to a 71.4. Number 4 is Heidi Gardner. Huge week for her as well. We saw Shop TV with Mikey and then the 10-1. And, Heidi was all over the place this week. Great week for her. She had a 68.2. James Austin Johnson, 66.5. So he actually dropped. This was his lowest power ranking score of the season so far. He's at a 66.5. Ego Wodum, biggest week for her, 64.9. She's tied technically, but ahead by like a 0.00 something ahead of Sarah Sherman, who's also at a 64.9. So they're tied for 6th. Number 8, Chloe Feynman, 60.6. Number 9, Dismukes, 59.6. He's been really consistent, especially the last 2 weeks. Michael Che, 52.9. That concludes the top 10. So Sammy, top 10. Haven't seen it in a while. What's the surprise of the top 10 here?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see after Bowen having a pretty okay week, he still is just so ahead of the pack. I mean, even last week we were expecting such a big overperformance with Ariana Grande being in the building, and 84.9 is still a solid number, but was down from his first 2 weeks. So just amazing to see kind of how far ahead he's at here. Other than that, Dismukes is such an interesting case to where I feel like maybe it's just because my comedy sensibilities are just so, I think just, he really speaks to me as far as what he's bringing to the show. But his impact this season for me, week to week, is a lot higher than him being kind of middle of the pack here. So I think, his hit ratio for me is still really solid. And then finally, just, not to harp again on Keenan, but, again, just it's crazy to see, him not in the top 10. So that's just interesting to see there.
Yeah, KT on the outside looking in. We never see this on this show. He's been a stat hero since day one. So super interesting. So this is taking consideration every appearance and screen time that I've collected. And talk about Halloween sketches. We got that Spirit Halloween week 1. Didn't include the host. Could have saved that for this week and been more Halloween centric, and could have slid in the Dismukes baseball dad pre-tape we didn't see on the show. So here are the last few, and I'll go to Victoria. Kenan Thompson, number 11, 52.4. So like I said, he hasn't had a 5-minute show yet this season. Number 12, Devin Walker, 43.1. So had out of the gate 2 strong episodes, now 2 not so strong episodes stat-wise. Number 13, same with Marcelo. He had a great week 2 with Bargatze. And now he's at a 42.9. So he's at 13th place. Number 14, Michael Longfellow, staying there, 32.3. And now our 3 rookies, no surprise there. So Jane, Emil, and Ashley are 15, 16, and 17, respectively. And Jane had a big week in number 2, and Emil, number 4. Ashley has been kind of consistent week 1 and 4 in the mid 30s, but had a shutout. So that's definitely hurt her score. So Victoria, bottom of the pack. Who has the biggest upside here?
I just want to call out first that I'm really surprised that Marcelo is as low as he is. I think maybe it's because I was probably hoping to see more of him at this point. I know we're only 4 episodes in, but I think he's such a powerhouse. I think he proved himself the last season or 2 with how funny he is. And then we had Domingo not too long ago. So I guess I'm surprised by how low he is. And of course, to echo Sammy on Kenan, seeing him down there. But other than that, it tracks. Not necessarily surprised, but we talked about Emil earlier, but really happy for him. And it looks like he's got a green arrow. So he's going to keep moving up, hopefully. But yeah, I think the rest of it tracks.
Yeah, with Marcelo, super strong finish to 49, which is great to see as a featured player, year 2, getting the bump up to repertory cast. It's great to have that arrow, as Victoria said, pointing upwards. So I'm happy we retained Longfellow and Devin as well. But looking at the power ranking score, so Marcelo, from the Shane Gillis episode, which was huge for him, to the Jake Gyllenhaal, which was good for him, he was averaging a 71.2. So that's a really strong number for a featured player. And then, with that Nate show with the Sabado Gigante, which was great, and the Domingo sketch with Ariana. So he's definitely getting points in the viral moments category. So, Sammy, last thought on the power ranking. Do you think any of these rookies can contest with the recently promoted cast? That's the last question.
I mean, I think they've all, Ashley hasn't been on update yet, but we've seen some solid sketch work from her, especially in, the last sketch of the night in the Keaton episode. It's interesting with her as well. Like, coming into the season, I think she was the first rookie picked in our cast draft. Obviously with her Groundlings experience, I think she has a lot of upside and potential. But I'm hoping to see more from Longfellow and Devin and Marcelo, like getting the promotion as well. So I don't know. I think, but from what I've seen so far, I think they definitely can contend.
Totally agree. Victoria, final thoughts, predictions. Hope I see you again soon. And then anything you want to plug for the rest of the season?
I was going to say, I would, maybe I'm wrong, or maybe my expectations are weird, but I would think with Longfellow, Devin, and Marcelo, they'd kind of be catapulted a bit more with their promotions and given a stronger start to the season. So I'm just surprised by that, but I hope we get more of them. They were promoted for a reason. And I think this season so far, there's a lot more memorable content coming from Devin that, we'll keep in our heads. For example, that TikTok pre-tape is really funny. And he played Dr. Omar, who's, kind of everywhere on TikTok, especially now after that. But Yeah, I hope to see more. And then shout out to Ashley Padilla because she's a Groundlings person and I'm a Second City person, and that
Bitter
training,
rivals.
bitter rivals, yeah. But that training is incredibly special, and I'm happy that that's back in the building. Not that, you know, I'm just happy that that type of training and that theater training is in there again.
Same. I like what we've seen from Ashley. Hope to see her at
Mhm.
Update and otherwise. So yeah, looking ahead, we have a week off from this show and from SNL. We have John Melany and Chappell Roan coming to the building. So we did have some 5-question coverage on what we expect to see, but that's the last episode before the election. So could be maybe we'll see our cameos one last time before the election, and then we'll see who wins. Last time we had an election with Jim Carrey and Maya Rudolph, Alec Baldwin, and Beck Bennett was playing Mike Pence back then. We had to wait till Saturday to find out the winner. Of course, there was a pandemic going on and a lot of crazy stuff going on, but it could be late in the week this time to find out the winner. So we definitely will see our cameos the week after. We do not know who the host and musical guests are for the post-election show. But as far as the stats go, screen time for the rookies and for everybody else, I'm very interested to see an A versus B of election SNL versus post-election SNL, because it's a lot easier to fit in, your rookies and recently promoted players when there's not 8-minute cold opens. So, Sammy, for you, great to have you back on the show. Any podcast spots coming up we should look out for?
Mike, it's always a pleasure to be on By the Numbers and break everything down with you. You're one of the best in the biz. You guys can find me at that Sammy Kay on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. I will be on the John Melany Roundtable. I guess I can plug that, so I'm excited for that. And then I will, in a couple weeks, be on the SNL Hall of Fame podcast with our friend Thomas Senna, talking about one of my favorites, Bobby Moynihan. So definitely check that out.
Friend of the show, Bobby Moynihan. Yeah, Victoria, did you have anything to promote with Second City?
I'm actually back in Detroit.
True.
I did move back to Detroit, but I'm at the Second City of Detroit, which is Go Comedy Improv. I got promoted to resident member, so
Congrats.
I'm having my Marcelo moment, y'all. No, but follow Go Comedy Improv, and they'll post when I'm performing, or you can follow me on Instagram here as well. And hopefully you'll see me with my best friend for life, Mike, back on this podcast. Who knows? Yeah, no, we're living the dream. And
Excellent.
And Sammy,
go ahead.
I'm calling you out in front of everyone. Come see a show.
Oh God, putting me on the spot. I'll definitely come see a show. Just let me know.
Though I did have one viewer come to Go Comedy, which was really cool. And then I had another viewer message me about coming to Go Comedy. And then in Chicago, I had a couple other, I should say, listeners come see me at Second City. So
we are a network. We're a network of Saturday nighters. So it's great to see fans of the show out in the wild. So
it is.
Go see our podcasters when they ask you to. Why not? Please. So we are happy to be presented by LateNighter.com. And you know what? I'll drop a little nugget for the people who have listened to the end of the show. I'm going to make the first ever prediction right now of when SNL episode 1000 premieres. Here's my prediction. It's going to be on February 7th, 2026, the night before Super Bowl 60 on NBC. You heard it here first.
Wow.
Good night, everybody. We will see you next time.